Hey everybody, Lone Star Rocker Channel here. I'm going on a tour around Washington D.C. to check out some monument sites. Why don't you hang out with me?
Alright, let's get this tour on the road. Well, first and foremost, good morning everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm going to be your driver and your guide today. So, first and foremost, let me get you guys acquainted to the city. This isn't typically the route we take, so this is cool. We'll get to see the Department of Treasury right here. In front of the Department of Treasury is a really cool statue of Lin-Manuel Miranda. No, it's actually a statue of Hamilton. But the actual Hamilton. Oh, speaking of Hamilton, we have the Hamilton right here. Really nice restaurant right there. Now, you guys, brace yourselves for a lot of incredibly corny jokes like that one. So the day is just getting started, okay?
You got the right audience.
All right, perfect. When I give the tour to a lot of Americans, you guys already know most of this history. So I'll try to give a lot of the more fun facts and the more trivia facts that a lot of people might not know about these very popular stories. So this right here to my left, this is Ford's Theater. Now the first half of this building, where it's nice and shiny and they have all the Christmas trees inside, this is where more of the museum aspect of the theater is. Also, Ford's Theater is still an active theater. Now, for a while, it was closed down in the 70s. One of the floors completely collapsed, and so they had to renovate that. But the actual the historical Ford's Theater is the one right here in front of me with the white bottom and the brick top. This is the place where our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, was assassinated April 15th, 1865. Now, we know that a man named John Wilkes Booth was the assassin, but what a lot of people didn't know was that he had two co-conspirators that had their own targets that night, but thankfully they were unsuccessful. So if you guys look up right here, there's a building right next to the Ford's Theater. It used to be an old tavern. It was called Star Bar. It was a tavern owned by Mary Surratt. She owned this building as well as another building closer down in Chinatown. It's right now functions as a Chinese food space. It's called a Walk and Roll. Very cool pun. But she owned this building here with the two globe lights. One light is on, one light is off. And John Wilkes Booth and his two friends, they sat in this building and they started to plan the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. So John Wilkes Booth was an actor. He was a very famous actor. Now, Hollywood doesn't exist, so his fame doesn't spread. It's very centralized. So a lot of people in this area, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, they know who John Wilkes Booth is. They know his face, and they know that his home theater just happens to be Ford's Theater. So to see John Wilkes Booth walking around backstage on a night like that, it wouldn't set off any red flags because this was his home theater. He actually had a bedroom in here that he would stay in every now and then. So that's the first thing that got him a little comfortability to be able to make this assassination happen. The next thing was he knew this theater like the back of his hand. He knew that the booth that the president would be sitting in, the door to that booth, the lock didn't latch all the way, and he knew that. So prior to the actual assassination attempt, he kind of jimmied it so that when he did come back to access it later, it would be easier to get in. So now he opens the door slowly, sneaks up behind the president, and he pulls out a single-shot Derringer, which is a pistol about this small. Single-shot, very tiny caliber, and he shoots the president right above his head, right above the ear, in the back of his head. Now, this happens in the middle of the play. John Wilkes Booth jumps off the balcony, comes down, twists his ankle, and then yells out, "Death to tyrants." And the weirdest thing happened. Everyone burst out in laughter because they thought this was some kind of cameo or some kind of odd John Wilkes Booth twist of the play, and they didn't realize what was going on. It wasn't until Mary Todd Lincoln, the First Lady, stood up and said, "Stop that man, he just shot the president." Now all hysteria breaks loose. John Wilkes Booth, he had a little bit of a head start, so he escapes and gets on a horse, and he travels out into the suburbs of Maryland, Clinton, Maryland, where Mary Surratt's house is. He stays there a night or two, and then he goes further down south into Virginia, where he's eventually caught and captured. Mary Surratt, for helping him, was the first woman to be executed by the United States government. And he hemorrhaged throughout the night. He went through 16 pillowcases, and at 8:45 in the morning, they announced that the president had in fact died. Now, that is a sad story, but it doesn't end sad. If you look right here in this building, this is the Center for Education and Leadership, and in this building, there is a spiraling bookshelf that goes up all the way to the third floor. Every single one of those books are on Abraham Lincoln, his life, his legacy, and his world views. And to this day, Abraham Lincoln is one of the most written about political figures of all time. So it doesn't stop here at Ford's Theater. His legacy keeps going on. And later today we'll see the Lincoln Memorial and get to see it all in all its grandeur and how we honor our 16th president. It stands at 555 feet, 5 1/8 inches. It was the tallest structure in the world for about 2 months until they finished the Eiffel Tower. It is the tallest standing stone structure in the Western Hemisphere. There's one structure in Egypt a little slightly taller. Now, if you work your way from the bottom and slowly go up, you can see the color changes about a third of the way up. Do you see that? That's because we ran out of money when we were building this. And for 44 years, not 4 years, not 4 months, for 44 years, it stayed at that height. Have you ever, has there ever been some construction in your town where they're trying to fix up a road or something and it's taken forever? It's like, dude, you've been working on this for like 5 years. This was 44 years, imagine. So the locals called it the Washington Monument of Failure because they made this grand deal about building it, and then for 44 years it was never actually completed. And so when they finally did come back to complete it, they got the stone from a different quarry. So the stones from the bottom are from Massachusetts, the stones from the top are from my hometown of Maryland. And so eventually we finally did get the World War II memorial done. Now, it's not just a memorial to the soldiers and the men who died in battle, it's an actual memorial to the entire era. That's what the designer wanted to make clear, that we're not just honoring the men, we're honoring the soldiers who who fought in the battle, but we're also honoring the civilians who kept the nation together on the home front. So a lot of historians attribute this as one time in American history where there was more unity amongst civilians in terms of like relying on each other with things like war bonds, leaning on your neighbor for help and things of that sort.
All right, the World War II Memorial. Let's check it out. Well, it's an amazing memorial to the men and women who fought bravely in World War II. My grandfather was in World War II. I know it affected his life dramatically. He didn't really talk about it a lot, but towards the end he found peace and brotherhood among the men on his ship, and so definitely an interesting time in our history of the world.
Now, if you look on the top of the Capitol building, there is a woman standing up there. She stands at 19.5 feet. Remember that height, 19.5 feet. Now, she looks like the lady in New York, but the lady in New York's name is Lady Liberty. This one's name is Lady Freedom. Now, she's not upset with us. I know her back is turned to us, but she's actually facing the sunrise. And there's actually another reason why her back is turned to us. Technically, this used to be the back of the Capitol building. Now, we don't call any entrances in any of our buildings in D.C. the front or the back because we don't want any foreign dignitaries to feel like we brought them through the back door. But it's actually Ronald Reagan's fault why she's turned away from us. Ronald Reagan, actor, the presenter, performer that he was, he came up with an idea to, well, all the inaugural addresses, all the inaugurations before Reagan were done on the other side of the Capitol building. But he said, why don't we do it on this side? We can fill up this big grass right here. We can fill up all the grass going down all the way to the Washington Monument. And he was actually right. All the grass in the middle here is known as the National Mall now.
All right, here we are at the Capitol. There she comes. Hey, it's the Capitol building. Yeah, they're up there thinking about laws, thinking about changing laws. Hopefully they'll pay down the national debt soon.
From the ruins, Congress decided to rebuild.
Take your picture. So this tour is great. We're gonna ride around and hopefully get to the Lincoln Memorial, and I'm excited to see it.
Secretary of State. He was one of 5 drafters of the Constitution. He also helped write the Declaration of Independence. This guy was incredibly smart. He founded the University of Virginia as well. He was an architecture study of history. This guy did a lot. Actually, one of JFK's famous quotes about Jefferson, he was in a room with a bunch of senators and he said, "Never has this room been filled with such intellect than when Thomas Jefferson stood here alone." Which is a great quote, right? It's a great quote. It's kind of an insult to all the people in that room, but it's a pretty good quote.
Yeah,
now, me personally, guys, when you really look at this take a step back and look at that statement, it's not that much of a compliment. If our 3rd president was our smartest president, and we've had 46 presidents, oh my goodness.
We're not on a winning
downhill slope.
We are not on a winning streak.
No.
Here we are at the Jefferson Memorial. All right, we're going up. It's a little slippery. It's 19 feet tall, huh? There he is. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Did not say created equity. Nope, equal. God, who gave us life, gave us liberty. Right. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial.
this is like a Southern California where there's a lot of like Hispanic gangs, and this family came, and the very first thing, it spoke to like the culture of how that area is. Very first thing he asked me, he was like, "Are there any gangs in D.C.?" I said, "No, not that I know of." And then I thought to myself, I was like, well, there's one. It's the Canadian geese. You need to watch out for those guys. I'm serious. They're no joke.
Bad.
If you mess with those geese, oh my goodness. But yeah, if you look underneath this, James Garfield. Now, James Garfield wasn't that significant of a president, and it's not his fault. He was assassinated pretty early into his presidency, not too far from here at a train station. Not the metro station, guys. No, they're still pretty great and safe and better than New York, but it was a different train station. But he was an amazing senator, which is why he's honored here at the Senate House. And as I mentioned, this building right here, this is the Canadian Embassy. You see how close it is? Now here's a cool thing about the Canadian Embassy. You guys see those plantains right there, right in the front? If you were to step right past that, you're technically in Canada. Now this is a statue of General Meade. He's honored here, and it's a really cool place where he's honored right out in front of the courthouse. He actually ended up being a judge later on in life, so they honored him right there. Now this building right here with the waffle kind of windows right there, that's the Department of Labor. And the significance of this building, it's the first building in DC to be named after a woman. Her name was Frances Perkin. The sad news is she was in labor for 12 years. Now, as we're crossing this bridge, you might see these 4 gold statues. Well, they're supposed to be gold if we ever cleaned them, but they were gifts from Italy. Now these 2 statues are supposed to represent the virtues of peace, which is like music and harvest, and these 2 statues represent the virtues of war, which is sacrifice and valor. And they lead very beautifully and very iconically and also dramatically into the iconic Arlington Cemetery. Look right here to my right. Now don't take any pictures of this because they will. You know how much an acre is? How many acres do you think you can see right now? Here's a wild guess, no wrong answers.
20?
About 10, right? Arlington Cemetery is 645 acres. Yeah, so just speaks to just how massive this plot of land is. And Virginia just annexed even more land, so you come back 10 years from now, this road could be Arlington Cemetery. It's not a very reliable consistency, meaning it's hard when you want it to be soft, it's soft when you want it to be hard. So if you're trying to master this terrain and win a battle on this terrain and you're not used to that, it's going to be pretty hard. And it was. This is one of the most bloodiest battles of this war. Now,
all right, raising the flag. Very interesting to see up close.
So boom, you never have to go to Greece, really. Plus, if you were to go to Greece, they're all old and they're in ruins. You can see them all pristine and clean and fresh here, and they have your states on them and things like that. So it's 36 pillars wrapping around the entire temple for each state that was underneath the presidency when Lincoln was president, for each state there.
There's the Lincoln Memorial. It's my favorite president for sure. Okay, Violet, we're gonna try to climb up there, see Abraham Lincoln statue. Let's do it. Up. There he is. Four scores and 7 years ago. Very cool. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth onto this continent a new nation.
Hold on a second.
Well, Violet, that's the tour of Washington, D.C. What'd you think? It was great. A little, very educational, very informative. And we got to see some awesome monuments. So anyway, we're gonna continue on through our trip here. We're gonna upload something cool to watch. If you like what you see, I want you to please subscribe and keep on rocking.
Bye.
In the book of Moses.
All right, there's the White House.
Observed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. All the
Here to see Joe Biden. Mr. Biden. Biden, I'm here for my appointment to talk about the economy. I'll meet you around the front gate.